60s, it was like the first place where people would gather and UFOs would appear.
Yeah, that was a fascinating story because he said, a town of 300 became a town of 10,000 in one day. That's something.
Yeah, and it's not too far away from a military base either. It's just a skip and a hop, and then you're at a military base. So maybe the aliens are coming there because of the military base. But that whole thing was such a, when he was on the show talking about it, is such a rich thing about UFOs. The guy who actually made a home in that big rock. And then, because he spoke German, he was an amateur radio operator. They thought he was a spy. And the police, got scared. They came there and basically raided his property, and he wouldn't come out, which the guy probably was scared. He was an old-timer. So they shot in, remember, the tear gas, and the guy had dynamite in his, living area and ignited it.
Yeah, that guy got a raw deal. I mean, just for Spricken Sie Deutsch, he really did. He took it the hard one. Yeah, that was rough.
Well, in Washington, D.C., senators have received classified information and briefings on UFOs.
Really? I wish they'd come out with some more tidbits. They tease us with, like, the Nimitz and these other things. There's got to be something else going to be leaked sometime, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know if they have any time in the, because CNN and NBC, CBS is all covering what's going on in Washington, D.C. I mean, if you go and check the news, that's all it is right now. So, I mean, all this other stuff, you have to do a lot of research to find out what's going on because, I mean, everything's about, wanting to impeach our president. And that's, taking up all the news media's time.
Right, and we talked about it before on here or touched on it. The old bait and switch or distraction, they want to distract you while they're doing something else, so to speak. And that goes on all the time, too. Let's get everybody paying attention to impeachment and this silly stuff by, we're sneak this other stuff by. Oh, boy.
Well, for a long time it was a wall. You couldn't go a day without hearing about the wall or the immigration problem, the people being locked up in like basically cages and treated like animals. That was in the paper, and on the news every day for months and months. And now it's on. It is really, it's crazy. Anyway, the Navy back here a month ago said, some of these reasons why they announced to the public about these UFOs and taking reports from the pilots, it just was so many of them. And between 2014 and 2015, many seasoned pilots from the Navy experienced numbers and numbers of encounters with UFOs during training missions and regular missions.
Wow. Yeah, and I believe that. And here's another little statistic I bet that you can't really put a number on, but for as many that is reported, there's got to be at least 25-30% that won't say a word, so that figure could be bigger, in other words, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, it's telling you something that's going on. And Washington State absolutely has the highest rate of UFO sightings, according to KOMO-TV and KOMO Radio News. Study,
I think per capita,
Yeah, according to the study and data collected by the National UFO Reporting Center, is that Washington State had 78.2% reportings of all UFOs in the nation.
Wow, that's quite a figure. I think I read somewhere they had in that period of time frame you're mentioning, somewhere around, I forget how many thousands, but it was a lot. And Washington's a big state, so there's a lot of sparse land, and it doesn't have a high population, compared to here in Ohio. There's 10, 12 million. I don't think there's even near that in Washington State, and Washington State's probably 3-4 times the size of the state.
I wonder why Washington State would have all these massive reportings when, a lot of the other states don't. Maybe it's our technology here in Washington. We have so many military bases. We got Bangor, where all the nuclear submarines go for the West Coast. is there. We have Bremerton Naval Shipyard. We got McCord Air Force Base. We got Fort Lewis, and then we got other military bases on the other side of the state. And then we got, where we keep nuclear weapons here. And I didn't even realize it. Not more than about 15 miles from my house, we got storage of nuclear devices.
Oh, that makes you sleep well at night, I'm sure. And it's funny you mentioned about the nuclear devices. I did like an overlay research, and over the years, for the last almost 50 years, wherever there's nuclear installations or bases with a lot of nukes, it seems to be a lot of reports that coincide with UFOs and these kind of incidences where they've shut down or they went offline. It's amazing how it lines up with these reports.
And then it's interesting, too, Navy pilots speak out about UFO sightings. Navy pilots speak out about UFO sightings and talk up to the New York Times about multiple encounters. These pilots, they wouldn't just see a UFO one time in their career. They're seeing them multiple times. So, almost every time they're going out, they're being tagged by a UFO or they run across one. That is really getting it kind of scary.
That is scary. And, it's funny you mention that because from that Nimitz and those other little incidents that they released, the one pilot, a couple pilots validated that they seen them. And then it was like a month later, they were on maneuvers. I don't know if it was the Middle East or China Sea or somewhere. But they seen the same kind of craft again, so they didn't know if they would have been following them all around the world or what was going on. But it definitely got their attention. And like the pilot said, here's the thing: we've seen the same things twice clear across the world, and nobody seems to be alarmed. The brass or nothing. So what? They know what's going on,
I don't know, but the pilots are getting concerned because it's like a lot of times they're going out doing their missions. And they're running across UFOs, and UFOs are either tagging them or wanting them to chase them, or and I'm surprised that the Navy's allowing the pilots to speak up, but evidently it's not just one or two pilots; it's dozens and dozens of them that are seeing stuff, and it's only been happening the last couple years, mainly since about 2014 is really when it escalated.
Absolutely. And here's the real scary part if you really think about this. Now, if this is going on, and a lot of the brass will say, it's not a national security problem. Well, wait a minute. If these things can come in and do whatever they want, and you're not doing nothing about them, and you're the military, that, to me, that is something to be scared about. You're not even doing nothing about it. So either you know about something and you're not telling everything, or you're just so far out of it, you don't even know what to do.
Well, one of the reasons why maybe the Navy came forward is because, according to the Washington Post back here a couple months ago, there wasn't just one or two Navy pilots, going up and telling their, commander, hey, look, there's UFOs. Or they get on the radio and they squawk box and say, hey, we're being followed by UFOs. There's literally been hundreds of, since 2004, pilots in the Navy saying that, hey, they're being followed by UFOs. So they started getting angry because the Navy wasn't doing it. They wasn't taking it seriously. But like when you get hundreds of pilots all of a sudden saying, hey, look, you got to do something about this. You got to come out about it, or we are.
Yeah, I think I think you made a good point there. That was probably the deciding factor was just the group of numbers that behind the pilots, the amount of them, which changed it. Because I'm sure if it was just one or two, they'd be like, you know what, your career's gone, get out of here.
Oh, yeah. But that's the point. When you get dozens and dozens and dozens of pilots, that have been in the military for a long time, seasoned pilots, ones with, reputations that are really good, you got to start taking them serious, especially when they actually have footage of it, from their video cameras on the plane, getting, pictures and video of these UFOs. How long can they sit there and say, hey, they don't exist? But the thing is, some of the officials in the Pentagon are actually thinking that these UFOs are really a threat to our national security.
Well, absolutely, they're a threat. They're a threat in a twofold field. For number one, they're a threat because they can do whatever they want when they want. We can't stop them. And number two, if God forbid an enemy country got some of that technology, that's not good either. Yeah, so yeah, it is a scary thing. Absolutely.
And then like USA Today back a couple months ago, when the president got a briefing about UFOs, he basically got on the news media and said, well, I don't particularly believe in him.
Yeah, he's just blowing them off. He's lying, I'm sure.
Well, I'm not going to call him a liar, but I think, he's been in denial about climate. He is the only, if you think about this, he's been the only president that has stripped the EPA, while every president has come in since Kennedy has been trying to build up the EPA, to protect our emissions from cars, clean water, clean this, clean that, get rid of radioactive waste, like at Hanford and all these other places. He is the only president that's basically fired everybody in the EPA, put a good friend in charge of the EPA who ran an oil company, and the EPA has no muscle now for anything. And then he's trying to strip even California, for their emissions, for the cars. He feels that, hey, why are you putting this restrictions on for emissions? Just drop it.
Yeah, I get it. I just think he's too smart to just say, well, I don't believe in it. I just don't. I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion, but.
I don't know. And then one of, the publications out there, a major one, said double dead that UFOs and nuclear war may become hand to hand.
That's something to think about right there. That might not keep you up at night, would it?
I don't know, but then UFO sightings are on the rise in Pennsylvania, of all places. They're starting to see more UFOs there.
I did see something flash across the news about that in Pennsylvania, a lot more sightings. It kind of reminds me, back in the early 70s, there was a lot of, which was weird, there was a lot of sightings in northwestern Pennsylvania that coincided with, at the same time, Bigfoot sightings. And some of the witnesses said they've seen both at the same time.
I don't know. According to the military, too, in Bloomberg News, it says for the last several years, the U.S. military has observed an increase in what it calls unexplained phenomena of UFOs. And they said maybe they are living among us.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. It's a good point there. They're living among us because, what's our planet made of? 75% of water, ocean? What better place to hide in plain sight, right underneath the water? Because let's face it, some of our oceans are 5, 6, 7 miles deep, and we can't even get down that far. So, and these crafts can do whatever they want, go wherever they want. Who knows how many hidden bases they've got all over the world, right here.
Yeah, well, maybe they're waiting for Antarctica. Maybe they're helping speed up the melt in Antarctica for a reason.
That's a good point, too. You know what? Maybe they know that deep down underneath some of that stuff, if it gets stalled out, is some virus that's been, like you talked about a few times, dormant for 50,000 years or whatever. And now it gets out, and, it's just helping them. They don't have to do anything. Just sit back and let the cards play, because who knows, maybe these beings can live 1,000 years or 10,000 years, where we live an average of, 70 years.
Yeah, you never think about that. And that's something you don't think about, because we're just looking at from our planet what our life expectancy is. And again, maybe in another solar system, another race of humanoids of some sort, their life expectancy, what is time? So, what is our hour? An hour to them could be, who knows? Let's face it. So they could be living thousands of years to our year.
Exactly, because here's a lot of factors that go into that, is the size of your planet, the rotations of it, and all these different factors, and the gravity level and all these things. If they're on a planet, say that they live on a planet that's 3 times the size of Jupiter or smaller, whatever, all these things, their Earth year may be 10 Earth years. And there's so many different factors that go into this. Yeah, that's the problem. We all think they all live like we do, or they're years like us. And that's a good point. It might not even be a factor at all to them.
Oh, no. So, I mean, that could be some of the issues, too. In 1952, according to the History Channel, is the year that, the reports of UFOs started. And where did it start? It started in the state of Washington.